Have you ever stopped to wonder what it would truly feel like to face the reality of growing older, with no one to share the moments that make up your life? As the years go by, the feeling of loneliness can become an unwelcome companion, even when you're surrounded by people. It's not just the absence of physical company. It's the quiet, pervasive sense of disconnection that creeps in, a feeling that can weigh heavily on your heart as the world around you seems to move faster and farther away. In today's video, we're going to have an honest and heartfelt conversation about aging. We'll dive into the often unspoken truths. What happens when your loved ones, caught up in their own busy lives, unintentionally drift away, leaving you with a quiet emptiness to face? But this isn't just about sadness. It's about finding strength in your independence, adapting to the new realities that aging brings, and rediscovering the beauty of human connection, even in later years. By the time you finish watching, I hope that you'll walk away with a fresh perspective on what it means to grow older. Not just accepting the changes, but embracing them with wisdom and resilience. You'll learn how to fill your days with meaning, even in moments of silence, and how to find joy and purpose in the life you still have ahead of you. Whether you're someone who's reflecting on your journey into the golden years or simply curious about the emotional aspects of aging, this video is for you. Together, we'll explore how to navigate this stage of life with strength, independence, and a sense of peace. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Your support means the world to me, and if you find this video valuable, please consider giving it a like and sharing it with someone who might need these lessons. Every bit of support helps us continue bringing you content that matters. Lastly, I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you connect with today's topic, comment 1 below. If you don't, comment 0, and let me know how I can make these videos even better for you. Your feedback truly helps me grow and improve. Now, let's begin this journey together. After my wife passed away, everything changed. The warmth of our shared laughter, the simple comfort of her presence, was gone, leaving the house eerily silent. My children, Amy and Michael, had grown busy with their own lives, scattered across the country, juggling careers and families. They called occasionally, their voices a fleeting echo in my otherwise quiet days, but as time went on, those calls became less frequent. The busyness of modern life pulled them further away, leaving me to sit in the stillness of my home, surrounded by walls that seemed to grow colder and more desolate with each passing day. One evening, the phone rang. It was Michael. His voice sounded hurried, almost distracted as he said, "Dad, I can't come by tonight. I've got a lot on my plate." I forced a smile and replied, "It's okay, son. Don't worry about me. Take care of what you need to do." As I hung up, I sat quietly, staring at the empty room around me. The shadows seemed to stretch longer, and the silence pressed down on me. It felt as though a gray cloud had settled over my heart, heavy with loneliness I couldn't shake. The next day, my neighbor, Linda, stopped by. She settled into the chair across from me with a deep sigh, her eyes reflecting a weariness I recognized all too well. "It's hard, isn't it?" she said after a moment. "My kids are busy with their own lives too. They mean well, but everyone is caught up in their little worlds. Sometimes I wonder what will happen when I'm truly alone." Her words struck a chord deep within me, like a sharp needle piercing through my thoughts. I nodded slowly, feeling the weight of her statement. "I've been thinking the same," I admitted. The idea of sitting in this house, year after year, with no one to talk to, it's terrifying. Linda gave me a small, sad smile. "We need to think about the future, Robert. There's no avoiding it. We have to prepare for the day when it's just us." That night, her words echoed in my mind, refusing to let me sleep. I pictured myself in the years to come, no voices to fill the silence, no laughter, no human connection. The thought filled me with a deep, aching sorrow. A few days later, Amy came to visit with her son, Jacob. I had spent the morning preparing her favorite dishes, imagining us sitting together, chatting, and sharing memories like we used to. But when she arrived, her visit was fleeting. "Dad, I'm so sorry, but I can't stay long," she said, her voice filled with apology. "I have to pick up Brian from work." Before I knew it, the meal I had carefully prepared was quickly tidied up, and Amy and Jacob were out the door. I stood in the doorway, watching their car drive away, the emptiness of the house rushing back to greet me. It was as if time had stopped for me while the rest of the world sped ahead. I sat back down at the dining table, staring at the untouched plates, feeling pieces of myself slip away, one by one. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the question circling my mind like a restless bird. What if this is it? What if I truly end up alone? The thought was unbearable, and yet, I knew I couldn't let this silence consume me. Something had to change. A few days later, I met Linda at the park. We sat side by side on an old wooden bench, watching the world pass us by. Children laughing, couples strolling hand in hand, the distant sound of a dog barking. I turned to her and, summoning a courage I hadn't felt in years, said, "Linda, I've been thinking about what you said the other day. You're right. We need to plan for the future. But how do we do that? How do we prepare ourselves for the reality of being alone?" Linda looked at me, her expression thoughtful. "We start by being honest with ourselves, Robert. It's not easy, but we need to learn how to rely on ourselves. No one else can fill the void, but we can take steps to make sure we're not swallowed by it." Her words planted a seed of resolve in me. I didn't know what the future would hold, but I realized then that I had to take control of the life I still had, rather than letting it slip away in silence. Linda nodded quietly, her expression thoughtful. "First and foremost," she said, "you need to make sure you have enough savings to get by comfortably. Money can't buy happiness, but it can save you from struggling when life gets harder. And you can't depend on your kids too much, Robert. They have their own families and their own busy lives. We have to learn to stand on our own 2 feet and take care of ourselves. It's the only way." Her words hit me like a wake-up call. Until that moment, I had been drifting through my days, letting time slip away with nothing but the TV, radio, and a few dusty books to keep me company. The loneliness was an ache I had grown too familiar with, but I hadn't realized how dangerous it could be. If I continued like this, I knew it wouldn't just weigh on my heart, it could drag me into a state of deep sadness, even illness. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. From that day forward, I decided to change. I started walking to the park every morning to get some fresh air and stretch my legs. In the afternoons, I began visiting the local senior center, where I learned to play chess and started striking up conversations with other people in similar situations. Slowly, I began to make new friends, people who, like me, had lost loved ones or were navigating life alone. We shared our stories, our little triumphs, and even our sorrows. It felt good to be heard, and gradually, life began to regain some of its color. But the nights were still hard. When darkness fell, the silence of my home became a heavy presence, pressing down on me as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. My mind wandered to the future. What would happen if I got sick? Who would be there to care for me? Who would listen when the weight of life became too much? The idea of finding a new partner began to surface in my thoughts, but with it came a wave of guilt. It felt like a betrayal of my late wife's memory, yet the thought of facing the rest of my life alone felt just as harsh. I decided to confide in Linda. After listening to me quietly, she placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Robert," she said gently, "wanting companionship doesn't mean you're replacing your wife or forgetting her. It's not about dependence or convenience. It's about sharing your heart. We all need someone to walk through life with, especially in the later years. There's no shame in that." Her words lifted a weight from my shoulders. For the first time, I realized that seeking a partner wasn't about filling a void but about finding comfort and connection in the years ahead. A few weeks later, during a community event, I met Emily. She was a warm, spirited woman with an infectious smile, living alone because her children were busy building their own lives in different cities. Emily had a knack for bringing light into any room she entered, and we hit it off almost instantly. We exchanged numbers, and soon we were taking walks together, visiting the farmer's market, and even cooking meals in each other's kitchens. For the first time in years, my home felt alive again. The silence that had haunted me was replaced by laughter, conversation, and the comforting presence of someone who understood. One day, I came down with a fever that left me bedridden. Emily showed up without hesitation, armed with medicine and a cool towel to bring down my temperature. She called Michael to let him know what was happening and urged him to take me to the hospital. Watching her care for me with such tenderness, Michael was both surprised and deeply grateful. "Dad," he said later, "why don't you come stay with me? I don't want you to be alone." But I gently declined, explaining that I wanted to stay where I was, with Emily by my side. Michael seemed to understand and even asked her to look after me, which she promised to do. Over time, Emily and I settled into a peaceful rhythm. It wasn't the fiery romance of youth, but it didn't need to be. Her presence brought me a sense of calm and reassurance I hadn't known I needed. We took care of each other, shared both joy and sadness, and became one another's emotional anchor. Slowly, I came to believe that aging didn't have to mean being alone. Then, one day, everything changed. I received a call from Emily's son, Daniel. His voice was hesitant as he explained that his mother would soon be moving in with him. She was getting married. Hearing those words felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. I struggled to keep my voice steady as I congratulated him, knowing this was a happy moment for Emily. But deep inside, a hollow pain began to spread through my chest. The thought of losing her, of returning to the loneliness I had fought so hard to escape, was almost too much to bear. When I saw Emily later that day, I forced a smile and told her how happy I was for her. "It's wonderful," I said, trying to sound genuine. "You deserve to be with your family, Emily. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine." But as she packed her bags and prepared to leave, I couldn't shake the feeling that a part of me was leaving with her. When her car disappeared down the road, the silence of my home returned, more deafening than ever. Still, I forced a smile and said in a calm voice, "It's wonderful that your son is getting married. Living with your children must be such a joy." But deep inside, a hollow emptiness began to form, slowly spreading through my chest. Emily seemed to sense something in my words. She looked at me with a hint of concern, as if waiting for me to say more. After a short pause, I sighed and continued, "Your son's marriage is a happy milestone, Emily. As his mother, you should be there for him, supporting him as he builds his life. Don't worry about me. I'm used to living alone." My words felt light as if they carried no weight, but each syllable seemed to press down on my heart like a stone. As Emily boarded the bus, her figure growing smaller with each step, I watched her silhouette disappear, and a deep sense of loss overwhelmed me. It felt as though a part of my world had been erased, leaving me standing in the remnants of a life that had once been warm and whole. When I returned home, the silence greeted me like an unwelcome guest. The walls, now more than ever, seemed to close in, their stillness almost oppressive. There were no warm voices to fill the air, no laughter, no comforting presence at the dining table. The warmth that Emily's companionship had brought into my life dissipated as swiftly as dew under the morning sun. I kept going to the park each morning, exercising and chatting with friends at the senior center, but the hole in my heart only seemed to grow larger. Amy and Michael still called occasionally, showing concern in their voices, but their lives were full: jobs, children, and responsibilities. They couldn't always be there. Not wanting to burden them, I always laughed and said, "I'm fine, don't worry about me." But deep down, I could feel the loneliness seeping into the cracks of my heart, an invisible force eroding my spirit little by little. One day, as I sat on a park bench, I overheard a group of seniors talking about nursing homes. They spoke of professional care, regular companionship, and a structured environment where the silence of living alone wouldn't consume them. An idea sparked in my mind. Perhaps that was the solution, a place where I wouldn't have to bear the weight of solitude. That evening, I called Linda to share my thoughts. After a pause, she asked hesitantly, "Robert, are you sure? Aren't those places cold and lonely?" I smiled, though she couldn't see it, and replied, "I'm not running away from reality, Linda. I just want to find peace in my later years. Michael and Amy are busy, they have their own lives, and I don't want to take that from them. A nursing home might not be perfect, but at least I'll have others around who understand what it's like." A few days later, Michael and Amy came to visit. They sat quietly in the living room, the air heavy with unspoken thoughts. Finally, Amy broke the silence. "Dad," she said softly, "we're worried about you. What if you get too lonely?" I took a deep breath and replied, "Don't worry about me. I've thought this through, and I believe this is the best decision. I need to find a place where I can live independently, without you two having to feel guilty or worried. I'll be okay." They exchanged a glance, their concern evident, but they didn't argue. Michael nodded and said, "If that's what you feel is right, Dad, we'll support your choice. But we'll keep visiting you, okay? You're not going to be alone." Hearing his words, I felt a weight lift from my chest, replaced by a quiet sense of relief. It wasn't an easy decision, but it felt like the right one. A few months later, I moved into a nursing home on the outskirts of the city. The grounds were beautiful, lush gardens filled with colorful flowers, open spaces where residents gathered to chat, and peaceful walking paths shaded by tall trees. On my first day, I took a slow walk through the courtyard, taking in my new surroundings. I was greeted by George, a fellow resident with a warm smile and a firm handshake. He introduced me to others, people who, like me, had found a sense of community here. That night, as I lay in bed in my small but cozy room, I looked out the window at the moonlit courtyard. A sense of calm spread through me. It wasn't the same as home, but at least I wasn't entirely alone. Here, I could share moments and stories with others who understood the unique challenges of aging. As time passed, I settled into a new rhythm. I stuck to a regular diet, walked daily, joined card games, and participated in community events. It wasn't a life full of excitement, but it was stable and fulfilling. Compared to the loneliness of my old house, my heart felt lighter. Michael and Amy still called often, and on weekends, they sometimes brought the grandchildren to visit. Hearing their voices and seeing their faces always filled me with joy. Each time, I reassured them with a smile, saying, "I'm doing great here. You don't need to worry. Just focus on your lives." 6 months later, I realized how much my life had changed. The routines, the conversations, and the small moments of laughter with friends at home had brought me peace. But life has a way of throwing surprises, and one afternoon, the phone rang with news that I wasn't prepared for. After lunch that day, I found myself sitting on the stone bench in the courtyard, basking in the warm sun. The chirping of birds filled the air with a sense of serenity, and a gentle breeze rustled the flowers around me. It was a moment of peace I had come to treasure. Suddenly, the shrill ring of my phone broke the calm. I picked it up and saw Michael's name on the screen. "Dad," he said. His voice rushed and strained. "It's Emily. She's been in a car accident. She's at the hospital in critical condition." The words hit me like a freight train. My hands shook as I gripped the phone, and a tightening pain spread through my chest. "What? Is she okay?" I managed to stammer, my voice trembling. Michael hesitated before replying, his tone heavy. I don't know much yet. I'm on my way to the hospital now. You should come too. The world seemed to tilt around me. Emily's kind smile, her warm voice, and every moment we had shared flashed through my mind like a vivid reel, each memory sharper than the last. I couldn't accept it. Couldn't understand how someone so full of life could face something so devastating. I hurried to the nursing home staff, my voice urgent as I asked them to arrange a ride for me. The drive to the hospital felt endless, my thoughts a storm of fear and helplessness. I replayed the last time I had seen Emily, her cheerful wave goodbye, over and over again. I clung to a desperate hope, silently praying for her safety. When I finally arrived at the hospital, Michael and Amy were waiting outside the emergency room, their faces etched with worry. Michael quickly moved to my side, steadying me as my legs threatened to give out. "Dad," he said softly, his voice heavy with distress, "the doctors are doing everything they can, but it doesn't look good." I sank into the bench Michael guided me to, my eyes fixed on the red light above the surgery room door. It felt like the weight of the entire world was pressing down on me. My mind raced. "She's so strong," I whispered to myself. "If anyone can fight through this, it's Emily." But no amount of self-reassurance could quiet the dread pooling in my chest. Every passing second stretched unbearably, my nerves fraying with each tick of the clock. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Finally, the doors to the surgery room swung open, and a doctor emerged. His face was tired, his expression solemn. I rushed to him, my body trembling as I asked, "Doctor, how is she? Is she going to be okay?" The doctor hesitated, then met my gaze with a detached, professional demeanor. "Her injuries are severe," he said quietly. "We've done everything we can, but you need to prepare yourselves for the worst." The words cut through me like a blade. My knees buckled, and Michael quickly grabbed my arm, helping me back to the bench. My mind was blank, unable to process the weight of the doctor's statement. I sat there, feeling the ache in my chest grow heavier and heavier. A short while later, the doors opened again, and nurses wheeled Emily out on a stretcher. She was unconscious, her face pale, her body fragile. I stood frozen, tears spilling down my cheeks. The sight of her like this, a shadow of the vibrant, cheerful woman I had known, broke something deep inside me. I moved closer and gently took her hand in mine. It was cold, and I gripped it tightly, as though holding on could keep her here with me. My voice cracked as I whispered, "Emily, please, hold on. You promised we'd walk through this life together. Don't leave me now. I can't do this alone." Each word felt like a plea, desperate and raw. Her eyes fluttered open, just barely. A cloudy gaze met mine, and I thought, for a fleeting moment, that she recognized me. Her lips moved slightly, struggling to form words, but no sound came. A single tear rolled down her cheek, and I leaned in, straining to hear her, but nothing came. At that moment, my knees gave out, and I collapsed beside her. The grief was too much to bear, an overwhelming tide that threatened to drown me entirely. I clung to her hand, my tears falling freely onto her skin. "Don't go, Emily," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Please, don't leave me. I need you." The room around me faded into the background. I could hear nothing but the sound of my sobs, and feel nothing but the cold hand of the woman who had brought light back into my life. As I knelt there, the weight of impending loss bore down on me, and the void it threatened to leave in my heart seemed impossibly vast. Kneeling beside her bed, I gripped Emily's hand tightly, my trembling as I pleaded, "Don't go, Emily. I can't live without you. What am I supposed to do if you're gone?" My voice cracked under the weight of despair, and hot tears spilled down my face, falling onto her cold, unmoving hand. I couldn't bear to let go, refusing to accept the reality that she was slipping further and further away. The pain was unbearable, a deep, gnawing ache that tore through my heart. Michael and Amy stood silently nearby, their faces streaked with tears, but neither said a word. They understood that no words could ease this moment. No platitudes could dull the edge of what was happening. The room was filled with an agonizing silence, broken only by the steady, indifferent beeping of the machines monitoring Emily's fragile condition, a cruel reminder of time slipping away. That night, Emily's condition took a turn for the worse. The doctor informed us that her chances of survival were slim. I sat at her bedside, unable to tear my gaze away. My eyes burned with exhaustion and grief, but I couldn't bring myself to blink, fearing that if I did, I might miss her last moments. She lay motionless, her body so still it was as if life itself was slipping away inch by inch. Finally, her eyes fluttered open, just barely. With great effort, she tried to lift her arm. Her hand, cold as ice and devoid of strength, trembled as I gently took it in mine. Tears streamed down my face, soaking the back of her hand as I held on tightly, trying to keep her with me for just a little longer. My voice caught in my throat, choked by the overwhelming sorrow that threatened to consume me. Emily's lips moved faintly, her words barely audible, but I leaned in and caught them. "Robert," she whispered, her voice weak yet filled with a depth that cut through me. "Stay strong." With those words, her hand grew limp in mine. Her eyes, heavy with exhaustion, slowly closed, never to open again. I sat there, frozen, as the weight of her absence hit me with the force of a tidal wave. My chest felt hollow, yet unbearably heavy, as though my grief had carved out a space too vast to fill. Tears poured down my face, and I stroked her hand gently, my voice breaking as I called out, "Emily, don't go. Please, stay with me. I need you." But there was no answer. She was gone. The reality of her passing crushed me, shattering what little strength I had left. Emily had been my light, the person who had brought warmth and color back into my life when I thought I would never feel joy again. Now, that light had been extinguished, leaving me in a world of pitch-black darkness. After her funeral, I returned to the nursing home, but it was no longer the refuge it had once been. Every corner of the place seemed to echo with memories of Emily, our shared laughter, the quiet moments we spent together, the way she had breathed life into the dullest of days. The emptiness was suffocating. My companions at home noticed the change in me. They offered silent support, sitting by my side or sharing small, thoughtful gestures, but they didn't press me to talk. They knew, perhaps better than anyone, that some wounds could never be put into words. Michael and Amy began visiting more often, bringing my grandchildren to brighten my days. Their innocent smiles and laughter were like a salve for my heart, but only temporarily. I tried to mask my sorrow, forcing smiles and pretending everything was okay. Yet inside, I felt like a hollow shell, my true feelings buried beneath layers of grief and loneliness. Memories of Emily haunted me, her last words, her fragile hand in mine, the tear that slipped down her cheek in her final moments. They etched themselves into my soul, leaving scars that no amount of time could heal. One evening, Michael sat beside me, his usual confidence replaced by a quiet sorrow. He hesitated before saying, "Dad, I know this has been hard for you, but Emily wouldn't want to see you this way. She'd want you to keep living, to be happy." I took a deep breath and shook my head slowly. "It's not that simple, Michael," I replied, my voice heavy with emotion. "When you lose someone who means the world to you, it's like losing half of yourself. It's not just sadness. It's as if a piece of your life has been ripped away." Michael nodded, his expression filled with understanding. "I know, Dad. It's not something you just get over. But you still have us. We're here for you." His words, though kind, couldn't fill the void Emily's absence had left. I nodded in acknowledgement, but deep down, I knew that no one else could truly understand the depth of my loss. It wasn't their fault, it was simply the nature of grief. The farewell I had said to Emily wasn't just a moment. It was a wound that would remain with me, shaping every day of my life moving forward. As the days turned into weeks, I began to accept that this pain would never fully go away. It would live within me, a reminder of the love and connection I had been fortunate to experience, even if only for a short time. But as I sat by the window one quiet evening, watching the sunset over the gardens, I realized that Emily's parting words were still with me. Stay strong. It was a small spark, barely enough to light my way, but it was a start. I couldn't bring her back, but I could honor her memory by continuing to live, even if it was the hardest thing I'd ever had to do. Michael fell silent. His eyes clouded with a hint of sadness. After a moment, he reached out, taking my hand in his and speaking with quiet sincerity. Dad, we're here for you. The grandkids are here too. You're not alone. We're always by your side. His words, though simple, kindled a small flame of warmth in my chest. I nodded slowly, my voice soft but steady. I know, son. Having you all means more to me than I can express. But the emptiness I feel, it's something only I can carry and understand. The next day, as I wandered through the nursing home's garden, soaking in the crisp morning air, I noticed an elderly man sitting alone on a bench. His shoulders were slumped, and his expression was weighed down by an unmistakable sorrow. He looked as lost as I had felt when I first moved here, burdened by heartache and unsure of how to navigate it. I approached him gently, placing a hand on his shoulder. You just moved in, didn't you? I asked softly. He looked up, startled, but nodded silently. If you'd like, I continued. Why don't we take a walk together? For a moment, he hesitated, as if unsure how to respond. Then, with a quiet nod, he stood, and we began to walk side by side. We didn't speak, but we didn't need to. There was an unspoken understanding between us, a recognition of shared pain. As we moved through the garden, the silence between us felt comforting rather than oppressive. Sometimes, presence alone is enough to bridge the gaps loneliness creates. Later that night, as I lay in bed, my thoughts inevitably turned to Emily. Her gentle voice, her warm smile, the way she cared for me so deeply, they were still so vivid in my mind. The memories, though painful, were also my most cherished treasures. In the stillness of the room, I could almost hear her voice again, soft and reassuring. Stay well, Robert. Cherish those around you. Closing my eyes, I felt a faint lightness in my heart for the first time in what seemed like ages. Though her passing had left an ache that would never fully fade, Emily had given me something invaluable. The lesson to treasure every connection in life, no matter how fleeting. Whether it was the bond of family, the warmth of friendship, or even a shared moment of quiet understanding with a stranger, these were the things that gave life its meaning. The next morning, as the sun bathed the garden in soft golden light, I took a slow walk along the familiar paths. The colorful flowers were in full bloom, their vibrant hues a reminder of life's beauty, and the cheerful chirping of birds filled the air. Even in the quiet solitude, I could feel the hum of life all around me. It was then that I realized a profound truth. Nothing in this world is eternal. The people we love, the moments we share, they all pass, but they leave their mark, their footprints, on our hearts. Those emotions, those memories, don't disappear. They stay with us, shaping who we are and giving us the strength to keep moving forward. I took a deep breath, letting the crisp air fill my lungs. For the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of peace. The memories of Emily's love and the lessons she had taught me were enough to guide me. Life might not be the same, and the void she left would never be filled, but there were still moments of joy to be found. As I walked through the garden, the sunlight warming my face, I resolved to live each remaining day as fully as I could. To hold my memories close but not let them anchor me in the past. to cherish the beauty around me, no matter how small, and to embrace the connections I still had. Emily had taught me that life's value isn't measured in its length, but in the love, warmth, and memories we create along the way. Carrying that knowledge in my heart, I took another step forward, ready to find the quiet joys that awaited me in the days ahead. Haruki Murakami once wrote, "People age in the blink of an eye. As you blink, a day passes, and looking back, youth has long gone." These words resonate deeply with anyone who has watched time slip through their fingers. The first gray hairs appear like whispers of change, and the lines etched into your skin tell stories of days you thought would never end. Time waits for no one, and as you age, the reality of its passage becomes undeniable. In adulthood, the fear of time often lingers in the background. You see it most acutely when your parents grow older, needing your help in ways they never did before. Then, one day, you hear yourself being called grandpa or grandma, and it catches you off guard. You're struck by the realization that you've crossed into a stage of life you once thought was so far away. You might say to yourself, "I still feel young," but deep down, you know those words are a small comfort, a way to keep the illusion of youth alive. Yet, in a way, youth never truly ends. It lingers, transformed, as a part of who you are. As the years go by, the hustle and noise of life give way to quieter moments. The silence isn't born from a lack of things to say, but from the absence of a need to say them. When you're younger, you're surrounded by people, and immersed in countless relationships. Yet, over time, you come to understand that only a precious few truly connect with your heart. In those quiet moments, you realize that silence can be comforting, even beautiful. A single unspoken glance, or a quiet word of reassurance, can carry far more weight than 1,000 conversations. On a still night, as you listen to your heartbeat, you might even find that loneliness isn't as frightening as you once believed. It becomes a teacher, a companion that nudges you towards self-respect and self-awareness. In your younger years, you may have been brimming with confidence, reckless, perhaps, and bold. But life has its way of humbling you. The trials you face and the hardships you endure teach lessons that no book or lecture ever could. You learn to accept that sometimes, despite your best efforts, things won't go your way. And that's okay. This humility doesn't weaken you. It strengthens you, making you someone others look up to. Respect isn't demanded. It's earned through the quiet dignity of perseverance. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Eventually, time forces you to accept your changes. It takes away the youthful glow and the fiery passions of earlier years, but it replaces them with something far more enduring, a mature and resilient heart. The intense, all-consuming love of youth evolves into a quiet, steady peace. The fervor that once defined your relationships is tempered, not diminished, and becomes a deep appreciation for the moments you've shared. When I was younger, I believed that love meant forever, holding hands, growing old together, and never parting ways. But life doesn't always follow the script we imagine. Some people come into your life and leave unforgettable marks, but they can't always stay with you until the end. Clinging to the idea of permanence in relationships is an imperfect dream, but that doesn't make the moments you share any less meaningful. The truth is that many relationships in life are built on compromises. You live together, you navigate challenges, and the days blend into one another. Time has a way of softening the sharp edges of life. Things that once seemed unbearable or unforgivable gradually lose their sting. You learn to avoid unnecessary conflict and let go of things that no longer serve you. Peace becomes your priority. Life, you realize, is an accumulation of choices. Some you make, and others are made for you. People who once seemed kind may disappoint you. Acts of goodwill may go unappreciated or even exploited. These realizations can be painful, but they are also liberating. They teach you to value yourself, to step back when needed, and to let go of expectations that no longer align with reality. Moving forward, it becomes clear that disappointment is not a failure but a lesson. The greater your hopes, the deeper the potential for disappointment, but this isn't something to fear. Instead, it's a reminder to seek balance and to ground yourself in what you can control. Whether you gain or lose, life ultimately teaches that the most important thing is to rely on yourself. True victory lies in overcoming your struggles and finding strength within. As you grow older, you begin to understand that life's greatest victories aren't always grand or visible to others. They're the quiet, personal triumphs, letting go of pain, embracing peace, and learning to live fully in each moment. The world around you will keep changing, but the footprints you leave behind, in the hearts of those you've touched, will endure. So, cherish each day. Whether it's filled with joy, sorrow, or quiet reflection, it's another step in the journey that is uniquely yours. And in that journey, you'll find not just the strength to carry on but the wisdom to thrive. As we reflect on everything shared today, one thing is clear. Aging is not just about the passage of time, it's about the lessons we learn, the love we give and receive, and the strength we find within ourselves to navigate life's inevitable changes. Whether it's embracing humility, cherishing meaningful relationships, or finding peace in silence, there's always something to take forward into the next chapter of life. What about you? What have you learned from today's video? Is there a particular insight or lesson that resonates with you? Something you plan to bring into practice in your own life? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Please share in the comments below one thing you've learned and how it will shape your journey moving forward. If you enjoyed this video and found it valuable, please leave your comment below and let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Your support helps us continue sharing meaningful content with you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.